What ski resort hosted the 1960 Winter Olympics, has the most intimidating lift access terrain in Lake Tahoe, and still holds the title for the birthplace of extreme skiing in North America? Palisades Tahoe, of course. Palisades Tahoe has stood tall as a playground and a proving ground for skiers and riders in the West for generations. For 75 years, it has been more than just a resort. It's a sacred space for those who seek the extreme of winter sports, and a place where the vertical lines of our dreams meet the jagged edges of the reality. Visiting this resort feels somewhat similar to a skier's pilgrimage. Today's video focuses solely on the Olympic Valley side of Palisades Tahoe, which is formally and controversially known as Squaw Valley. While the resort now connects to Alpine Meadows via the impressive base-to-base gondola, Palisades Tahoe's acres of terrain deserves its own spotlight. We'll cover off Alpine Meadows in a separate video. Today, we'll explore every aspect of this legendary mountain. I'll take you through each zone and the terrain types, from the beginner-friendly slopes at High Camp to the white-knuckle steeps of the KT22. We'll dive into the snow conditions, the lift system, and everything you need to know about lift tickets and pricing. Plus, I'll share my tips on where to stay, how to get there, and yes, where to find the best breakfast to kickstart your day. If you've ridden at Palisades Tahoe before, especially the KT22, drop a comment comparing it to other terrain that you've tackled. I'm particularly curious to see how it stacks up against Snowbird in Utah. And if you find this guide helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more resort reviews, including our upcoming Alpine Meadows breakdown. My day at Palisades Tahoe starts at around 8 a.m. with a breakfast at the Wildflower Baking Company. Their bagels and coffee are the perfect fuel before hitting the slopes. Trust me, you'll need the energy for what's ahead. So let's jump into it. So I just wanted to jump in here before the rest of the review, as we're currently packing for our next ski trip to Europe, and it got me thinking. Do you remember when base layers used to be an afterthought? I personally would just wear whatever I could find and put it under my ski gear. Whether that be my trackies, my sweatpants, cotton t-shirts, massive mistake. That was until I discovered Arctic Eco Snow and their base layers. They're lightweight, they're incredibly warm, and most importantly, they're breathable. I've used these base layers when I'm riding in Lake Tahoe, in Japan, and obviously across Australia, and they haven't just performed. They have actually transformed the way I ride. I'm no longer freezing on the mountain, I'm not overheating on the slopes, I do not go out to the mountains without these base layers. But here's the best part. Every layer is made from recyclable materials. Every purchase, they plant trees, and it removes about 1 kilogram of plastic waste. Arctic Eco Snow started as a small business within Australia, but they're now dominating the European scene from the base of the Alps. They also ship worldwide. So if you want to get yourself a pair of these incredible base layers, hit the link in the description. Let's first talk some numbers. Palisades Tahoe summit sits at 9,049 feet, or 2,578 meters, above sea level, and offers 2,848 feet, or 868 meters of vertical drop. The terrain here is spread across multiple zones, each with its own personality. The resort boasts 279 runs across 6,400 acres of terrain, and here's the kicker. 54% is either advanced or expert terrain. Yes, this mountain means business. But don't let the stats scare you off. The terrain is thoughtfully laid out, with beginner areas high up in the Gold Coast, intermediate cruises off Shirley Lake, and the more challenging stuff, well, that's pretty much just everywhere else in between. For those just starting out, Palisades Tahoe has really thought things through. Take the iconic aerial tram up to High Camp, and you'll find the most welcoming beginner terrain on the mountain. The Mountain Meadow Lift and the Big Blue Express service wide, gentle slopes that are perfect for learning. No surprise steep sections or unexpected challenges here. Plus, it's pretty remote, so you don't have to worry about other riders whizzing past you. If you're absolutely new to skiing or riding, there's a dedicated first-timers zone near the Far East Express. Sure, it's not the largest beginner area in Tahoe, but it is well designed, and the views of the resort towering above you are pretty amazing. Though you might be too focused on actually staying upright to notice this at first. Intermediate riders, this resort has you sorted. The Gold Coast and Shirley Lake Express lifts will fast become your new best friends. These areas serve up perfectly pitched blue cruises that seem to go on forever. One of my favourite runs was taking the summit to base route. Nothing beats long flowy turns with Lake Tahoe or the jagged Alpine as your backdrop. What makes these intermediate zones special is how naturally they flow. You can progress at your own pace, and there's always another run that's slightly more challenging when you're ready. Plus, this sets you up for possibly moving onto advanced terrain. The Washi Shoe Lift and the Red Dog Lift also offer great long intermediate cruises that will take you from around mid-mountain all the way back to the base. Now we're talking. This is where Palisades Tahoe really shows its teeth. The KT-22, nicknamed the Mothership by locals, is arguably the best lift-served expert terrain in North America. Standing at the base of the lift, you can look up and see the Fingers, a series of intimidating cliff bands. You'll understand why this place birthed extreme skiing in North America. I spent most of my morning lapping the KT-22, and I barely scratched the surface of all of the terrain. It was only recently that Palisades Tahoe added double black diamond runs to their trail maps. Up until that point, an advanced groomer run, per the map, was the same difficulty as the technical cliffs that cut underneath the KT-22 lift. This possibly led some riders into some white-knuckle minefields of rocks, drops, and tight trees. The Headwall Express, whilst not comparable to the KT-22, is another amazing lift and terrain pocket. The run directly under the lift offers stunning views of the valley, though you might be too focused on the terrain to notice. For those up for a challenge, Silverado's back bowls hide some of the more technical cliff bands and chutes you'll find in bounds. Even after a storm, this zone takes a little longer to get tracked out since it's tucked away in the back of the resort. For comparison, for those who have not ridden at Palisades Tahoe, think snowbird level steeps, but let me know in the comments if you've ridden both and what do you think. Between all these zones, it's pretty clear why 54% of this mountain is rated advanced to expert. I visited during February 2023, right in the middle of one of Tahoe's biggest snow years. The storms were rolling through consistently, and you could still find fresh snow days after each storm system. But here's the thing. Palisades Tahoe is pretty exposed. When the storms hit, winds can shut down the lifts for safety. If you're planning a trip, it's smart to build in some buffer days. The good news is, when the conditions clear up, you're in for a treat. I lucked out with bluebird skies during my visit, making those high alpine views even more spectacular. It's worth noting that after a strong storm system, you'll need to be mindful of delayed lift openings as the mountain op team need to do avalanche mitigation. It was only last season where riders were caught and killed in an inbounds avalanche off the side of the KT-22 lift. Just because you're inside the resort doesn't mean that you're always completely safe. It is the mountains after all. With 41 lifts spread across the resort, you've got options. The lift network includes everything from the iconic aerial tram to high-speed six-packs to fixed grip chairs. The variety means you can avoid the worst of the crowds by knowing which lifts to hit and when. I personally never saw major lift lines, however I was there on a random Wednesday in February, but we've all seen those excessive lift line videos on Instagram. The aerial tram is worth riding at least once. It drops you off at high camp and makes sure you head out to that massive deck to soak in the incredible views. From there, you can pretty much hit any part of the resort, as well as gain access to the backside areas. Just remember, this is California and not far from the Bay Area, so people actually show up in force on powder days and on holidays. Let's talk money, because we all know skiing ain't cheap. A day ticket at Palisades Tahoe will run you $150 to $200 USD during the regular season, jumping up to around $250 on weekends and holidays. Yeah, we know. Welcome to modern day skiing in North America, where they are pushing everyone to a season pass. Palisades Tahoe is an Alterra owned resort, meaning unlimited access with a full icon pass. I paid about $150 USD for my day tickets in February. Honestly, it felt rather steep until I remembered what I was getting access to, and I did fly halfway around the world to visit these resorts, so had to be done. The village at the base has everything you'll ever need. Shops, restaurants, bars, and the rental shops. But let's talk about that morning ritual I mentioned earlier. Wildflower Baking Company, their breakfast bagels are the perfect way to start your day. Trust me on this one. Up on the actual mountain, both Gold Coast and High Camp have large restaurants with plenty of seating. They're your typical ski resort cafeterias. Nothing mind-blowing, but they'll keep you fueled. If you're looking for something more substantial, save it for the village at the end of the day. An interesting aspect is that out in the resort, there are very little places to go to the bathroom if you need to. It's either the base village, the Gold Coast terminal, or the High Camp terminal. You've got two main choices when it comes to accommodation. Stay in the village or drive in from the lake or truckee. The village is convenient but expensive. We're starting at $600 USD per night. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it might be worth it to avoid the notorious Highway 89 traffic on powder days. I stayed down in Tahoe Vista, which is about 20 minutes away on the lake. It's an easy drive when the conditions are clear, and you'll save money for those few extra days of skiing. Just make sure that you've got a four-wheel drive vehicle. It's pretty much essential for any winter conditions in Tahoe. And I'm pretty sure that when the snow starts to fall, it's nearly impossible to reach any of the resorts without winter tires, snow chains, or a four-wheel drive / all-wheel drive. Palisades Tahoe sits about 45 minutes from Reno and roughly 3 hours from San Francisco. If you're flying in, Reno's your best bet for a domestic flight, but internationally, you're going to end up at San Francisco, and then you'll have to drive up to the resort. Once up in the Tahoe Basin, it's easy to find the resort, and for those coming from Truckee, you can just head down Highway 89 directly to the resort. The access road is well maintained, but then again, rent that four-wheel drive if you're coming in from out of state or overseas. You'll thank me later. To wrap up my day, I took one final run from the top of the Siberia Express, a 20-minute cruiser that lets you soak in the views one last time. The run pretty much summed up my day at Palisades Tahoe. Technical when you want it, cruisy when you need it, but it's always impressive. But here's the bottom line. If you're an advanced or expert rider, put this place at the top of your list. It's right up there with Snowbird in my books. Intermediate riders will find plenty to love in the Gold Coast and Shirley Lake zones. And beginners, look, it might not be the best resort to learn how to ride at, but if that's where you're going, they've got some of the best views whilst you learn to ski. Let me know in the comments if you've ridden here and how you think it compares to other resorts. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon for the Alpine Meadows Resort review, which is coming soon, plus many other resorts across the United States and Japan. Thanks for watching. Ciao.